A night at the drive-in. I still remember that night like it was yesterday, though it must have been back in '59 or maybe '60. I was 13, maybe 14, caught in that awkward spot where you're not quite a kid anymore, but nowhere near grown up either. Summer had settled over our little town like a warm, heavy blanket. The kind of air that clung to your skin and never cooled, even after the sun dipped below the horizon. But I didn't mind the heat, not one bit. Because tonight was special. Tonight was the drive-in. We piled into Dad's big Chevy Bel Air, a boat of a car with chrome that gleamed under the streetlights. I was squished in the back seat with my little brother, Tommy, who was already fidgeting, his sneakers kicking the back of Mom's seat. The windows were rolled down, letting in a breeze that carried the scent of fresh-cut grass from Mr. Thompson's lawn down the street, mixed with the sharp tang of gasoline from our last stop at the Esso station. That smell, I swear, was as much a part of summer as fireflies or the hum of cicadas. It was the smell of adventure, of going somewhere, of something about to happen. The drive to the Starlite drive-in wasn't long, but it felt like a journey. Dad drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the open window, humming some old Sinatra tune Mom loved. She sat up front, her hair tied back with a scarf, turning every now and then to remind us to behave. Tommy, of course, was already plotting how to sneak an extra root beer from the cooler. Me? I was too busy staring out the window, watching the world blur by. Old houses with wraparound porches, kids on bikes chasing the last light of day, and the faint glow of the drive-in's neon sign growing brighter as we got closer. When we pulled into the lot, it was like stepping into another world. That giant white screen loomed against the twilight sky. So big it felt like it belonged in a city, not our sleepy little town. Cars were lined up in neat rows, their tail fins and hood ornaments catching the last rays of sunlight. Fords, Buicks, a few fancy Pontiacs, each one parked like it was staking a claim. Kids ran barefoot between the cars, dodging moms who were unpacking coolers stuffed with sandwiches and thermoses of lemonade. Teenagers leaned against their hoods, trying to look cool in their rolled-up jeans and slicked-back hair, stealing glances at each other while pretending not to care. Radios crackled as dads fiddled with the dials, trying to tune in the local station playing Elvis or Buddy Holly before the movie started. Everywhere you looked, something was happening, like the whole town had shown up to share this one perfect night. Dad found our spot near the middle, close enough to see the screen, but not so close you had to crane your neck. He hooked one of those heavy metal speakers onto the window, its cord dangling like a lifeline to the movie. It gave a little crackle, like it was waking up from a long nap, and I felt my heart skip. Tommy and I leaned forward, our faces practically pressed to the glass, waiting for the magic to start. I was nervous and excited all at once, like something big was about to happen, though I couldn't say what. Before the movie began, there was the ritual of the snack stand. Mom handed me a couple of quarters and I bolted out of the car, Tommy trailing behind, his eyes wide with the promise of candy. The snack stand was a little wooden shack, painted red and white, with a line that snaked halfway across the lot. The air was thick with the smell of buttered popcorn, hot dogs grilling on a roller, and the sugary sweetness of cotton candy. I can still see the glow of the neon sign above the counter, buzzing faintly, and the way the teenage girl behind it worked the popcorn machine like she was conducting an orchestra. I spent my quarters on a paper bucket of popcorn, still warm from the popper, and a couple of Necco wafers for Tommy. He wanted a snow cone, but I told him he'd spill it in the car, and we'd both catch hell from Dad. Back at the Chevy, the lot was buzzing with life. A group of high schoolers a few cars down were laughing too loud, probably sneaking sips from a flask one of them had swiped from their dad's liquor cabinet. I overheard snippets of their talk, something about a drag race out on Route 17 and who was taking who to the homecoming dance. Nearby, Mrs. Callahan was scolding her twins for throwing gravel, while Mr. Callahan just chuckled and lit a cigarette. In the car next to us, a young couple sat close, whispering and giggling, their faces lit by the soft glow of the dashboard. It was like the drive-in was its own little universe, where everyone's stories collided for one night under the stars. The sky darkened, and the projector hummed to life. A beam of light shot out from the booth behind us, painting the screen with a flicker of black and white cartoons. Bugs Bunny outsmarting Elmer Fudd. Tommy laughed so hard he nearly choked on his Necco wafers, and even Dad let out a rare chuckle. Then came the newsreel, grainy footage of astronauts and presidents, which nobody paid much attention to. We were all waiting for the main event, a double feature of Rebel Without a Cause and some monster flick I can't recall the name of. When the opening credits rolled, the whole lot went quiet, like we were all holding our breath. The sound wasn't perfect. Sometimes it crackled or cut out for a second. But it didn't matter. The picture flickered now and then, but that didn't matter either. Sitting there, under a sky full of stars, it felt like the whole world had stopped just for us. Mom passed around a thermos of iced tea, so cold it made my fingers ache, and a bag of her homemade peanut butter cookies, still soft in the middle. I munched on popcorn, the salt and butter coating my fingers, while Tommy slurped his root beer, ignoring Mom's warnings about drinking it too fast. Halfway through the movie, I noticed the teenagers behind us had stopped whispering and were now necking in the shadows, their car rocking just enough to make me blush and look away. I didn't say anything to Tommy. He was too young to notice, thank God. Instead, I focused on James Dean, his red jacket glowing on the screen, his voice carrying that restless edge that made me feel like I understood him, even if I didn't know why. As the night wore on, the air grew cooler, and Mom draped a blanket over Tommy, who was starting to nod off. I fought to stay awake, not wanting to miss a single moment. I remember glancing at Dad, his face lit by the screen's glow, looking younger than I'd ever seen him, like the weight of work and bills had lifted for a few hours. Mom caught my eye and smiled, one of those quiet smiles that said everything was right in the world. Somewhere in the second movie, giant ants, or maybe a creature from a lagoon. Tommy's head grew heavy on my shoulder, his soft snores mixing with the hum of the speaker. I didn't move him. I just sat there, letting the night wrap around me like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. It wasn't just the movie that made it magic. It was everything. The crunch of gravel underfoot, the flicker of fireflies in the distance, the way the air smelled like popcorn and gasoline in summer. It was the sound of kids laughing, parents bickering, and teenagers stealing kisses. It was the way the Chevy's seats creaked, the way the speaker crackled, the way the stars seemed brighter than they'd ever been. I don't know if I remember every line of Rebel Without a Cause or what those giant ants were up to, but I remember how it felt to be there, in that moment, with my family and my town and the whole wide world stretched out on that screen. Years later, when the Starlite closed down and the lot turned into a strip mall, I'd drive by and try to picture it. The screen, the cars, the kids running wild. It's gone now, but that night lives in me, clear as day. It wasn't just a movie, it was magic, the kind you only get when you're young and the world feels like it's yours forever.